Hi, today I'd like to show more illustrations from this book that is the Comic Almanac illustrated by George Cruikshank, 1836, so just before Queen Victoria, so I think it's the last year of William IV, and so just about becoming the Victorian period. So here you can see that I love this man here who's fallen over, and all these people, and it looks like a bit of a dandy racing away. There's been a crack in the ice, people have fallen in. One that's even actually draped over the word that says dangerous, so they're not taking any notice of that. And these sort of frost fairs, as they were called, were quite big in the Victorian period because that had a slight colder period than normal. There was a lot more snow, and you got this feeling of this sort of things like Dickensian type of Christmases where it's always snowing. Nowadays, especially in the south of England, we often don't even get any snow, so it's not a occurrence we get every year. But in this part of the century, there were lots of snow fairs, and people would set up tents and all sorts of things on the ice to sell products. And there's got one here, all hot sugar and brandy. So people would go out skating, and people would, as always, make the best of it by trying to sell to the customers. So this is a very sort of modern type of caricatures. When I was growing up, there was a magazine called the Giles, which I believe were cartoons from a paper. I think it might have been the Daily Express. And this sort of humour was very similar, very similar. This is the Giles book. And you can see that there's all these people's faces, the little baby, the old granny swatting things. So this is Giles that I used to grow up with. And yet you can see the very influence Giles got from this type of thing, where you got all these quite outlandish people. And this one bloke, he's got down here, he's grabbing the foot of this bloke to get pulled out. And it gives you a feeling of the period. That's January. Have a look at February. At the end of this, I'll read a little story, and I'll show you a little story of a gardener, which is quite funny. So let's set this one up. So it's February, transfer day at the bank. So you can see that they're starting. Some of these people have low hats, these flat hats, and yet the top hat is starting to come in. There's a few more people with, and this grew and grew and grew until you got to the 1850s, where they had very tall hats. A time of people like Brunel. He had a very tall hat. I think they're called chimney pot type hats, because they look like chimney pots. But again, you can see all the characters here. As you see nowadays, all the banks are closing, but in those days, everything had to go through. You had cash was king in those days, and you had to get all the things done at the bank. And there was thousands of clerks and stuff like that. So it was all manual. You had to write down everything. So it was all very manually done. That's February. And now we go to March. March, day and night nearly equal. That's what it says on here. And you got the lady with her buckets. Sort of a milkmaid type look. Everybody's smoking in those days. And there's a parade going along. Grand masquerade dancing. So it's probably to do with a dance. They're trying to bring up customers. It's a harlequin at the front there, looking like they're going to have a nice time. March. This one hasn't got a date on this one, but you can see all the sherry, port. If you can see this, you can look at the writing. Wine in a ferment and spirits in hot water. So again, it's all this very modern looking characteristics. If you saw this in a magazine today, you would not think that this is some 180 years old. You'd think that's quite a modern take. So this is April. Let's have a look at April. And here they're doing Greenwich Park. There is a sort of thing nowadays where they roll cheese down and they have to run after the cheese, I believe it is. I'm not sure where that happens, but it is a thing in England. And so in those days they're running down the hill, some of them losing their balance and they're falling down. And again, you've got this wonderful, and this one here, this guy here looks quite old-fashioned. He's got the tricorn hat on, but he's lost a leg. But the expressions are great. You know, that even with a few strokes, you can see this man coming down the hill, and this woman knows that they're all going to collapse on each other very soon. And again, these people, looks like they're running down the hill, hand in hand, and they're not sure if they'll be able to stop. And this one, somebody's fallen flat on their face. So everything in those days, a lot of the entertainment was outside. You mixed a lot more with people around you than today, where it's much more hidden. So this one is May Day. And we've got the maypole, a very ancient English tradition, where you'd get a maypole, you'd get strings from the maypole, and then you'd dance around in a very ornate way of dancing, going under and over, and so you're tying up the ribbons around the pole. It was a fertility type dance originally, sort of a pagan fertility dance, which carried on through the centuries, and people don't do that anymore. Again, these are sort of things that were quite common. You've got the musicians there, people dancing, having a good time, babies and others just looking around. And then you've got the maypole itself, got the flag, British flag there, and the maypole. Again, I don't know if that happens anywhere in Britain today. I haven't heard of anything like that now. I think when I was growing up, it was just about, you did it at school, but I don't think that happens anymore. So let's have a look at June. Here we've got holiday at public offices. Again, you've got George Cruikshank signature there. And you've got all these people lounging around. I think it's sort of a joke that Even on a supposedly work day, people are just lying around, reading papers, and then you've got the customers getting fed up outside because nobody's serving them. So I think that was a pun on or a caricature of the public service, because people didn't used to work that long in those days. It was a sort of gentleman thing, gentleman's hours they used to call them, where people just went for certain times, but not every. They would only go sort of 10 till 3 or something like that, you know. We've got July. Let's have a look at July. Again, you've got this mad dogs. Oh, it's Houndsditch. So that's in the east of the city of London. There's a Punch and Judy going on. There's lots of dogs, dog carts. Looks like there's a dog show of some sort. And you can see the expressions on these people's faces. They're just so interesting. See here, Dog Toby. So it's all about, it's called Houndsditch, so maybe it's a pun on the word Houndsditch, because hound is the sort of Germanic word for dog. You've got lots of different dogs here. So that's July. August, this one's an interesting one. You've got the seaside. So in those days, people would bring down these huts on wheels. They would change in the huts. They would go down the steps into the water, because these huts would go actually into the water. And then you would bathe for a little while. Bathing at that time was a very big thing. And so, because women had to be strictly dressed, you couldn't go out with a modern bathing suit. You had to be well dressed up. And so you would come out just into the water and have a little bathe and then go back in again. So you've got these waves coming up. The faces show the horror of what's happening. It's supposed to do you good to go out and be bathing. Bathing at Brighton. Brighton was a big place. George IV had his big house there, the pavilion. So Brighton was a big place for people to go and bathe and be seen. Another one of these sort of places where it was about being seen by other people of the upper sorts. August, September. Now this one is called Michaelmas Day. And in Michaelmas Day there's 4 rent-paying days. So you had to pay your rent on these days. Michaelmas Day was one of those days that you had to pay your quarterly rent. And here you've got a family who haven't got the money. They're doing what is called a moonlight flit in the middle of the night. They're rushing out with all their belongings. The children have got their bits and pieces all over the place, and they're running for it because they've got no money. When the rent man comes, they can't pay him, so they're doing a runner. So this is Michaelmas Day, and everybody's going off. There's the dad with his chairs, bundles of stuff, and they're off to the next place they can find. So again, it shows you the type of life these people were living. They were just rushing off. This one is October. It says St. Crispin's Day. Now, St. Crispin's Day, the only thing I know about St. Crispin's Day is it's the speech in, is it Henry V? The Battle of Agincourt? Was that St. Crispin's Day? You were talking about St. Crispin's Day. Again, you got everybody at the pub. And there's a shoemaker's there. I sought good liquor all the day, and at last I found it. So they're all drinking, and they've got their boots outside for sale. And unfortunately, there's a man hitting his wife. That was the life of people in those days. So and a little kid there reading his paper or magazine. But that is how life was lived in those days. Quite a rough time. Here we've got November. Now, November in the City of London, there's often a confusion nowadays because they've got a Mayor of London and a Lord Mayor of London. Now, the Lord Mayor of London is a very old, traditional post. It's the Mayor of the City of London, so it's only that little square mile within the City of London. It is a very old role that's been there hundreds of years. And he has a show. The Lord Mayor is elected every year in November. And after he's been elected, he goes through the city in this coach, and usually they've got big parades before him and after him. It still goes on today. And nowadays there's a modern Mayor of London, and he is the Mayor of all of the London, so all the various boroughs. So and so sometimes there's confusion between the Lord Mayor and the Mayor of London, but the Lord Mayor is the Mayor of just the city, and it is a very old traditional post. So this is probably down Cheapside, I'd thought, something like that. You've got the Lord Mayor and all the bigwigs in the coach. There's lots of merriment outside. People are getting pushed and pulled all over the place. And you can see there is a knight there, so it's part of a procession. Looks like there might well be a sort of pulling a boat along behind him. So it's a big do, and there's some people selling various things. Little kid down there, can't see a thing. And you've got all the shops along here. So I think this is probably Cheapside, because it goes from the from his mansion house, and he goes all the way to St. Paul's, and I think there's a little ceremony at St. Paul's. But you can see that this is the scrum that's happening around the Lord Mayor's Day. So let's have the last one. This one is December, Boxing Day. Now, Boxing Day was the time when people used to pay their servants a little bit extra. Even today, people pay people, like if you've got a milkman, they always used to, well, because we still got milkmen, but not many people have nowadays, we still give them some money at Boxing Day. It's a Christmas gift. And it tended to be the time when the servants had a day off to go and visit their relations, because they'd worked hard over Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then Boxing Day everybody could go home. So this is Boxing Day. And there are actually some people actually having a bit of a fight, but that's not the meaning of Boxing Day. It's not to do with fighting. And there's people going off, putting their stuff onto the coach and going off to visit relations. This one's quite a long one, so I'll leave it here. I'll do the little talk on the gardener on another video so that you can see that one as well. So please subscribe, hit the like button. It all helps so that more people can see these sort of things. I do find them of interest. I hope you do as well. It gives you an insight of people's lives of that day in a very sort of amusing way. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.